Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Little technical difficulty before we start tonight, but we're on the air. Tonight's show. Every once in a while, you run across a great kidney transplant story that is just so good, you got to share it. But the kidney story that you're about to hear tonight involves not one, not two, not three, but four, possibly more kidney transplants. Shannon Mulroy has a young daughter, Julia, who at the age of 15 was living a very idyllic life in suburban New York, going to high school, playing soccer, lacrosse, hanging out with her friends. Suddenly, her eyes and her legs began to swell, and Julia was not feeling well. After extensive testing and workup at New York Presbyterian slash Columbia and a biopsy, Julia was diagnosed with FSGS, a disease that attacks the kidney's filters, causing permanent damage. Despite everyone's best efforts, including her remarkable family and very notable physicians, Julia's kidneys failed. She was put on hemodialysis as a bridge to a kidney transplant. That's when Shannon, who calls herself the capital MOM monster, kicked into overdrive. She took steps to help her daughter find a kidney donor. Shannon was initially ruled out as a direct donor to Julia because of possible genetic mutations, so someone outside of the family would have to donate. Shannon reached out on social media and to her friends with a heartbreaking letter describing her daughter's situation. A donor was found through Julia's twin brother on the baseball team at St. Anthony's High School in Huntington, Long Island. A mom, Lisa Calla, who's also a lawyer, donated to Julia on June 27, 2019 at New York Press. This so inspired Lisa's husband, Guy, that he also made an indirect anonymous donation. Later, Shannon herself donated through paired exchange a kidney in return for a voucher because, as you know from prior shows, pediatric kidney patients need multiple transplants during the course of their lifetime. And just in case Julia needed a kidney transplant in the future, Shannon wanted to be ready. Shannon's husband is set to do the same thing very soon. Since that time, Shannon has become a very, very active kidney advocate. And she does things like registering donors, speaking out. She works with Live on New York, NephCure, Goldfinch Bio, Impact, Cure GN Study, and with our good friend Kent Bressler at Kidney Solutions. She, Lisa, and Julia are also award winners. So please give a warm welcome to Shannon Mulroy on the show tonight. Start the show, Jared.
Hi.
Hi, Shannon. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. That was a great intro. I appreciate that.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Happy to do it. Did I get all the information correct in the intro? Did I state everything correctly?
You got it. You nailed it.
All right. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your education, employment
Um,
stuff.
well, I live in Long Island, New York, and I didn't originally start here. I started in upstate New York in the Catskills, and not too many people know about the area, but very small town, maybe 27 people in my graduating class. So truly, I am a country girl at heart, but living in Long Island. So that's a little bit about where I'm from. Uh, I worked as a sports massage therapist with the NFL, treated all sorts of NFL players for the past 25 plus years. And I'm a mom to twins, Julie and TJ. They're 19 right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Tell us a little bit about Julia. What was her life like before the age of 15?
Oh, she was just a regular average teen, played soccer, lacrosse, enjoyed doing, activities with friends and just hanging out with her brother, just regular normal, as we call normal sort of life for a teenager.
Okay. And at the age of 15, did Julia begin to experience changes in her health? Can you tell us what happened?
Sure. So at 15, she just started high school. She was a freshman and just excited. She was going to a new high school, St. Anthony's High School in Huntington, New York. And it was a different situation because she didn't know anybody and starting high school. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, her eyes started swelling. And that's when this nightmare really started. We were blindsided. Her eyes started swelling up and she was saying, Mom, geez, look at my eyes. So the first thing I thought about is let me give her Benadryl. Your eyes swollen, you must be having an allergic reaction. And really didn't pay much attention to it further than that because we were, wasn't much to really look at. It was just a little bit of swelling. And then the swelling just got a little bit worse. So I took her to her eye doctor because we recently had new contacts. So I said, oh, let me bring her there. Maybe it's something going on. And the the eye doctor said, you know what? She has allergies. It has nothing to do with her contacts. So bring her to an allergist. So I tried to find an allergist, but I couldn't get an appointment with anybody. Took, weeks and weeks. And one day we just got this real heavy snowstorm. And I said, you know what? Let me just call. And I started calling around everybody around. And I finally found an allergist. So I took her there. And the allergist did all the tests. They said she has no allergies. Let me do some blood work. And he asked me if I seen any other things like swelling. And I said, no, I really didn't see anything. I wasn't thinking anything like that. And he goes, okay, let's run some blood tests, but it's going to take about 3 weeks. And about 2 weeks into that, one day I'm out and she's calling me and she says, Mom, you got to come home. You have to look at my legs. And I came home, her ankles were massive. They're real swollen. And I woke up my husband. I said, something's real wrong here. And the next morning I called the allergist. I said, I know the blood work takes 3 weeks, but I need the blood work now. And I would say within a minute or two, my pediatrician called and said, get her to the ER. She has something called nephrotic syndrome. And that was it.
Okay. It's it's my understanding there were weeks of testing, extensive blood work, a biopsy was taken. What did you find out about your daughter's medical condition?
Well, the first thing really that hit me was I was like, nephrotic syndrome, what's this? And 3 months into it, she started off on prednisone. And if anybody knows prednisone, they know that it's really a terrible, terrible option. But unfortunately, what I've learned to know now, that is really the only option. That's what they start you out on. And excuse me, my ear thing. They start you out on prednisone, and it has terrible, awful side effects. So you can only imagine it being a high school or a female when you're on 60 milligrams of prednisone and you start gaining weight. And she put on 25 pounds, which is not easy, especially as a teenage girl. It wasn't easy. And we found out she ended up getting a biopsy and it was called focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, which is a mouthful. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. So I made up business cards just so I could pass them out to everybody so they could see what I was trying to say. And then in hopes if I'd pass it out, maybe they would, you know, pass out to somebody who could find a cure for this thing.
Okay. What course of treatment did the doctors prescribe?
Well, the first thing was prednisone. And realistically, at this point, I look at prednisone as one of those things. I said, if you have a computer that's 70 years old and it's never been updated, that's what I think about prednisone and this disease. They put you on 60 milligrams of prednisone because there are no other options and nothing has changed with that. And that's why one of the things we can get to later in the show is why I fight so hard, because there really needs to have better options. NephCure, and we'll get to that later on, NephCure Kidney International, they come up with a statement that says we deserve better, and we do. To have steroids, prednisone as your first response, your first thing that they're going to give you with somebody with nephrotic syndrome is really not the best option. But that's what they gave us. They gave us prednisone. She became steroid resistant, so meaning that the steroids didn't work for her. So then the next step is they said, okay, well, let's try tacrolimus. It's, a form of Prograf. And that was another medication they tried. And I kept feeling like, let's just throw spaghetti against the wall, see if it sticks.
Right.
Let's try this. That didn't work. Okay, let's try that. That didn't work. So after the steroids, she went on 10 months of tacrolimus. It's aggressive medication, and she became toxic to that. So we had to take her off that. And then they're like, okay, well, here's your options. And the options were minimal. It was try this, try that. This only has a 20% success rate. This one might have a 25% success rate, but this is a chemo. There was never any good option. There was nothing.
Okay. What happened to Julia's kidney function?
Well, when we were blindsided by this, when she was 15, 2 years later, she was in full-blown end-stage kidney failure and had to start hemodialysis. And that's how fast it went. Nothing worked. Nothing got her into remission. Nothing settled her down. She was in full-blown end-stage kidney failure, 2 years.
Okay. Describe for us, after she was placed on hemodialysis, what kind of challenges did Julia face? How long was she on dialysis?
Thank God she was not on dialysis too long. The challenges that I found is, hey, she was in high school, so she's supposed to be going through puberty and, different changes in your body, but yet her body was going through, kidney failure. So she had to be on a special diet of a renal diet. She had to be on low sodium. And then when she was actually on dialysis, it became low sodium, low potassium, low phosphorus, low protein. That was very hard to challenging to try to work with as a teenager, to find things that she was allowed to even eat. They also had put a central venous catheter. So they inserted this catheter that went into her heart. Thankfully, she was in Catholic school, so she wore a uniform, so she was able to cover it with her shirt. She had a sweater vest, a blazer, because as a teenager at 16 years old now at this point, 17, that's not something that's really favorable for anybody, never mind a teenage girl in high school, to have these tubes coming out. So she had to cover it. You couldn't get it wet. So it became such a challenge to even bathe and wash her hair. It was just an awful situation. Being on dialysis, it's not good for an adult, never mind a child. Dialysis was just a nightmare.
Okay. After she was placed on dialysis, what treatment did the physicians recommend for Julia? What were they trying to do?
Well, when she was on dialysis, there was no question that she needed a transplant. At that point, they were like, okay, let's prepare to try to find a donor. And we had talked about me becoming her donor. I actually recall myself being in the bathroom, just praying up to God that it would be me. I wanted to donate. I'm her mother. I mean, what else? I felt I have to do this for her. And they felt, because see, the thing is with FSGS, hers in particular, the primary cause of her health issues is that they don't know what caused this. So even though we did genetic testing, they still said, if I can find some sort of living donor, that would be our best option. So they were going to look for a non-direct, non-relative type of donor. So that's, they might prepare for that. So at that point, I sat down at my dining room table and took everything I had, all my being, to sit down and write this really, really difficult letter to ask somebody if they could save my daughter's life. It's not an easy thing, especially when you've never asked for anything in your life. And now you have to turn around and plead and beg people, ask anybody to try to save your kid's life. It wasn't an easy letter to write. It was hard. It was difficult. But I sat down, I took a long time, I processed it, and I said, you know what? I have no choice. I have to write this letter. And I did.
Okay. How did you distribute this information that Julia needed a kidney transplant and it was going to have to be somebody outside of your family?
So At the time I was very private, and it's funny when I look back now because I'm so out there. I'm always like, "Oh, more exposure, sure, put me out there. I'll take any interview or whatever." But at the time, I had no social media, extremely private person. And when I thought about things, I said, "You know what? Either I choose social media or I'm going to choose a casket." That's how strongly I felt. I said, "I need to get this out there. I have to find someone." So I went and I put it out to everybody on my phone, my email. I put it out on Facebook. I made all sorts of social media, and that's how I originally started distributing it. And then what happened was one day I was coming from dialysis, and my son, who it's my daughter's twin, he I felt bad for him a lot of times because everything revolved about around her doctor's appointments and always around her life. And I wanted him to understand that I was there for him too. So he was having a baseball game, and I said, I was just coming from dialysis. I was exhausted. I probably had no sleep. And I had was talking to one of the moms on the baseball field, and she looked at me and she said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "You look so down. You look sad." And I had not told many people at this point, and I didn't know her well. I said to her, I don't even really too much remember me even saying this, but I did. I said, "My daughter's going to die if she doesn't get a transplant. And would you mind sharing this flyer that I made?" And I had no idea, but she took that flyer and she went and got tested, and she was a match. And I was just
Wow.
besides myself. She was a mother of two boys that were my son's friends, and she says, she goes, "I can't imagine if this were my children." And she thought about it, and she went and got tested. And when they told me she was a match, I called her. I was speechless. I didn't know her well, and I said, "As long as you're 100%," I said, then great. I said, "But if you're less than 100%," I said, "then just walk away. We're good. Just I appreciate you even doing it." She goes, "Oh no, I'm 100%. I already booked my appointments for starting tomorrow." And it was like, okay. And 4 months and one day later from that flyer, she gave the gift of life to my daughter. She
Okay.
saved her life.
We're talking about Lisa Calla, the attorney,
Lisa
right?
Gala. Right, that's right.
Okay. And June 27th, 2019, Julia had a kidney transplant at New York Press. Can you tell
Right.
us how are you feeling that day? What were your feelings?
Oof. Well, there was a lot of emotions going on, Jim. What a lot of people don't know is, well, first of all, we spent 6 weeks in the hospital. We had gone in a week prior because they wanted to do they wanted to continue her dialysis. They wanted to give her a couple rounds of rituximab, which is to try to help with the recurrence of the disease. It's like a form of chemo. And so we were there a week prior, but unfortunately, this is a crazy twist to it. My mom unexpectedly had passed away 5 days before her transplant. So it was real difficult. It was, I had to dig, I had to dig real deep on that, but I did. And I said, my mom was in Florida, and I said, she is going to be here with me and give me strength to get through this. But it was hard because I didn't want to show my daughter my agonizing pain. My mom just passed away. I remember hugging one of the nurses at Columbia at the Children's Hospital. I remember hugging them and being like, "Okay, pull this together." I'm sitting in the room with my daughter. I didn't want her to, I told her grandmother just passed, but I didn't want her to see I just let her see, obviously, some tears, but I didn't want to have her see weakness. She needed strength. So 5 days before, and the ironic thing is that my mom had lung cancer, so she she ended up getting released from the hospital and into a rehab center. And 3 days later, she was on life support, I guess from pneumonia. When her organs started shutting down, they put her on dialysis. She ended up having a heart attack on dialysis, and the very next day, I sat in the room with my daughter on dialysis. Talk about pulling out your strength. I pulled it. That was a real dig deep situation, but I
Okay.
watched my daughter on dialysis, and then she had her transplant. The amazing thing is that when Julia went for her transplant, I was a bundle of nerves, but as they wheeled her away, she's in her wheelchair. First of all, she never even looked back. Same as when she was in nursery school, she just walked forward and never looked back. But they took her off in her wheelchair. She looked at me and she's like, "Don't cry, Mom, I'm good." And I was like, I'm sitting there, waiting for her to say anything more like that. She was in tears, nothing. She just went off as if she was going off to hang out with some friends. I mean, talk about strength. This kid's got it. Mhm.
Tell us, because our friend Kent Bressler has pointed out in the chat, talk to us about FGS and Julia's new kidney. What happened?
Okay, so Julia had her transplant. It was a 6 hour, actually 7 hours before they even came out to speak with us. And she did great through the surgery, but unfortunately, her FSGS recurred almost immediately, meaning it came right back and attacked the new kidney. We were prepared for this prior to the surgery because our team over at New York Presbyterian Columbia Children's Hospital, our lead nephrologist, Dr. Namrata Jain, she's a rock star of nephrology. She's amazing, but she prepared us real firmly that there is a possibility, because the condition of the aggressiveness of her disease being that in 2 years she was in kidney failure and how aggressive her FSGS was, that there was a strong possibility it could come back and attack the new kidneys, and it did. So unfortunately, it was like, okay, great, got this gift of life, but it came right back and attacked the new kidney. So here we are 2.5 years post-transplant. Julia's still battling. Has not been in remission yet, but she's still battling.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about those challenges. What was done to try and counteract this?
Well, after the transplant, that's why we stayed there for 6 weeks. It was difficult. 6 weeks. It was all through the summer, but they were doing rounds and rounds and rounds of plasmapheresis. It's a plasma exchange. They take out, they again connected to that catheter. They would take out like the bad antibodies out, and they would kind of like clean it, and they would replace it with good plasma, and that's actually derived from human plasma. So when people donate blood, how important it is to donate blood. So all of you out there who want to donate, please donate blood. It's much appreciated and needed, but for these type of particular infusions. So she did, probably a good solid year of plasmapheresis, and that seemed to help her the most. Is kind of getting that plasma exchange that helped her quite a bit. She also did a thing called LDL pheresis. They tried to clean out that out of her body, out of her blood, but that really made her worse. So we went back to plasmapheresis. So we spent an awful lot of time doing in the infusion rooms. Thankfully, we did that out on Long Island at Cohen's Children's Hospital, and we had an incredible group of infusion nurses there. So if they're listening, shout out to my infusion ladies over there. But they did a great job with us because we were there 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and then they would eventually kind of knock it down to we're getting to once a week. But it was difficult. That was all through her high school, her last year of high school. It was real tough. So those are the type of things. Last summer, they did 6 rounds of an infusion. It was a chemo-based infusion where it was for leukemia. They tried to repurpose that and use it for her type of kidney disease. And that helped her. So she's in partial remission. I'll take it. It's better than where she was at prior.
Okay. You and I are in Ken Bressler's support group on Monday evenings for Kidney Solutions, and you chatted last Monday a little bit about her ongoing challenges now that she's not at home with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about that course of treatment?
Sure. So right now she's in college. She's a sophomore. She lives off campus in New York City. And one of the things about it, which it was interesting because last year during the pandemic, she was about to start college and she finished these 6 rounds of the chemo. And 3 weeks later, I moved her into campus, to go start her college life. It was definitely against what her doctors or team felt. They were kind of like, all right, we're in the middle of a pandemic. She just went through 6 rounds of chemo. She has no B cells to fight off any kind of infection or anything. They were concerned. And I said to them, I said, you know what? I understand, and I've always trusted my team, and I still continue to trust my team. But I feel the mental part of this disease is equal as important as the physical. I felt that mentally, she really needed to live her life. She was given this gift, and I wasn't going to put her in a bubble. I said she has to live her life. Every single day is a gift, and I want her to live it. So she moved into campus. Yes, I rolled the dice, and yes, we were in the middle of a pandemic, but I felt it was really important for her mental being to be able to go live her life. So she moved onto campus, and her numbers are the best they've ever been. And I really truly believe, because mentally she is, yeah, mentally, if she were to stay home, what would she be doing? She'd be laying in her bed. Now she goes to the gym, has friends, she's in a sorority. So, I look at this as a win for me. And I think too many people overlook the mental part of this disease, or the mental part of someone living with chronic illness. But, as her mother, I said, I'm not doing this. I'm letting her live. She worked hard to be where she's at right now, and she deserves it.
Okay. After the transplant, I read a story somewhere about matching silver necklaces. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Shannon?
Sure. So I was, when you sit there and think about things, and I brought this up before, when somebody gives your child or you the gift of life, there is nothing that I could give back to Lisa Cow. Nothing. There's nothing tangible that I could give to her to say thank you. And I said, I tell people, you hold the door open for somebody and you say thank you. You hand somebody a gift and you say thank you. How do I use those same words, in a different thing? I said, how do you say thank you for the person who saved my daughter's life? So, I said, I just want to give her a symbol of something. And I came across these Tiffany necklaces, and it was in the shape of a kidney. So I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. It's like a kidney. So I wanted to have the name, the date engraved on it. And I called up Tiffany and their store, and they said, no, they can't put the date on it. They can't engrave it. It's too small. And I was like, oh, but you can. So after talking to him, I told him the story, and he's like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And not only did they engrave it, it was like a $60 or $70 engraving fee for each. He's like, oh, I'm doing this for free. I'm not even charging you for the engraving. I was like, okay, but thank you. I was just wanted it on there. So I presented both of them. Julia knew I was going to give it to Lisa Callow, but then I wanted Julia to have the matching. So this way, just a little something between the two of them, and Lisa, I know, wears it all the time. She absolutely loves it.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. It's my understanding, as a result of Lisa's gift to Julia, that her husband, Brian, made an altruistic donation as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Except for his name is Guy, Guy Calla. So last year we were at their kids' graduation at their house, at their party at their house. And he came up to us and he said, I have to tell you something. He said, I was so inspired by what my wife did. He's like, I can't not do the same for somebody else. He goes, I'm donating my kidney. And I just hugged him. Tears were in my eyes. I said, you've got to be kidding me. And he says, I have to do this. And he did. And last September, during the middle of the pandemic, New York City, this man went to New York Presbyterian Columbia and donated his kidney to a perfect stranger and saved their life. Yeah.
All right. I know that both you and your husband are donors as well. And we talked a little bit, and we've had guests on the show that have talked about pediatric kidney disease and the necessity of probably 2, 3, or more transplants for a pediatric patient. Can you tell us the story about yourself and your husband as donors, and what's going on with all that?
Sure. So, it's interesting. We're married 26 years, and I said, gee, this is what it's coming down to. Our dates have become testing to be organ donors. So we spent the whole day in the city doing testing, and we laughed about it. I said, this is great. Most people go on, go to the movies. We're going doing, CT scans and colonoscopies and everything. But so it was all intention that I would go first, and that he would be my caregiver. And then after, he would do it. So he's, probably sometime in January or February, he's looking at doing the same. And I'm sorry, the rest of your question, I just lost my train of thought.
Okay.
What was it, Jim?
I was asking how all that worked. You didn't exactly donate directly to somebody. Can you explain what happened?
So I was part of a donor exchange, and I had found out that the woman, it was a woman, and she was 53 years old. That's all I knew, and that she was not in the same hospital. But it was part of a donor exchange, meaning that somebody had donated a kidney to somebody else on behalf of her, gave her a voucher. She turned that voucher in. And when she turns that voucher in, she moves to the top of the list. And when she moves to the top of the list, they put her in there. I was a direct match to her. So in other words, there were 2 donors and 2 recipients, because of this. It was a donor exchange. In return, I got a voucher, and I call it the Willy Wonka golden ticket, because that's what it is. I feel like I won the golden ticket here, that now I have this voucher for the next time that Julia needs her kidney. And, in all honesty, I can't deny the fact that most likely she will need another kidney. We can't, all be as well. Actually, we could try to be like Ken Bressler and have this superpowered kidney, but she's 19, so in all reality, she will need another kidney. And now I have this Willy Wonka golden ticket for her, that the next time she will be able to turn that voucher in and hopefully bypass dialysis, and somebody will be her match, and somebody else will give her a kidney. And the main thing is that she won't have to wait on that list for 5 to 8 years or whatever it is.
Right. She goes to the top of the list. It's
She will
my
go in and
understanding.
somebody else.
It's my understanding you did this August the 12th, so it's fairly recent.
Yes. It was very fast, and I didn't even take a single painkiller, nothing. There was no Oxycontins or whatever those things are. I just took straight up old school Tylenol. And, I was out of there in 2 days. 3 weeks later, I was back to work. My work's pretty physical. Otherwise, I would have been back sooner. So
Okay.
for me, it was great.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on with your husband and his donation.
Okay, so he's just on a holding pattern right now. He should be ready in about a month or 2.
Okay. I've noticed from your correspondence to me, you're a very, very active kidney advocate. Can you please describe your kidney advocacy activities for us?
Sure. Jim, would you mind if I actually just went back a step, just a second, before I go into that?
No.
Can you hear me? Okay. I just actually, because I'm just thinking about something. One of the things back about Julia, I would just want people to kind of see this. If you can, here's my big bag. Can y'all see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of medicine.
Yeah. I wanted you guys to see this so you can really get a grasp on what it's like to have FSGS, kidney disease. These are bottles and bottles and bottles of medications, typically a lot of them about the size of this. Now you have like your normal medicine bottle, which people normally get maybe is about this size, right? When you get something like this filled with medication, you get sick to your stomach. I keep this as something so people can understand what it's like to live with this kidney disease. It's difficult. And then the other thing is this is my big book. These are labs and labs and labs of every single blood lab that my daughter has ever taken. Talk about why I call myself a momster. I would walk into these doctors' office and I was prepared. I have things highlighted. I have them sectioned off into, sections with blood labs, and that was just her pre-transplant. Then we have our post-transplant binder. I'm on number 2. I'm on number 2 of those. And here's my Bible. I walked into every single appointment out there, a great quote a day, because I have to keep it positive. I walked into every single appointment. There was not a single thing that I didn't write down. So when doctors would ask me questions, and this is why I wanted to lead into this about my advocacy, when I would talk to doctors or they would say anything to me, I can go back at any point and any time and say, oh, okay, on February 8th, 2017, what her mood was. It was a good day, a bad day, what every level that she was on. and why I feel this is important. And when talking about advocacy, I do a lot of mentoring right now and talking with other patients and caregivers. The very first thing I tell them, get yourself a book, get a nice hardcover book that's solid, that you can take wherever you go, because it's really important that you write everything down. This disease is wacky, it's crazy. So it's important so you don't forget things and to ask a lot of questions. I was very fortunate to have an incredible team, not only my transplant team at New York Presbyterian Columbia, but even my post care with Dr. Laura Castellanos at Cohen Children's Hospital. You have to have a great team, team that you trust 100%. I mean, they had my kids' life in their hands. So to me, I had to be 100% with them. So back to my advocacy. So yeah, so what I had to become involved because, I can't just sit back and watch things. I need to make things happen. So as far as talking, I love to share my story. I've volunteered with Live on New York, and they do the organ they deal with organ donations and go to the hospitals for the post life transplants. And I started volunteering where I go on rounds with them into hospitals, to DMVs, to register and educate people on how to be an organ donor and the importance. And then now with Kent and with you guys in the support group, with Kent, I started working as his living donor coordinator over at Kidney Solutions. And for those of you who don't know what Kidney Solutions is, kidneysolutions.org. And Kent does a great job. So big shout out to Kent. And just helping people, because now I have experience on both the recipient side and the donor side. So I'm able to really help talk to people, mentor them on what it's like to be a living donor, and also be on the other side, on the recipient side.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about the work that you've done with Live on New York, NephCure, Goldfinch, MPAC, CureGN, some of those things.
So with Goldfinch Bio, and that's actually where I met Kent. He's on the patient caregiver advisory board with myself, and it's led by Amanda Grandinetti. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but Amanda has been such a fierce leader with Goldfinch Bio, and she put together this advisory panel. And I appreciate that because it gives people like Kent and myself, gives us a voice, and we're able to speak to the doctors and researchers and scientists. So, and they're listening. And I think it's important for people to understand what it's like to be a patient or a caregiver. And at Goldfinch Bio, they're a precision medicine company, and they're working hard to try to help us and come up with better treatment options and hopefully to find a cure. So that's where I originally met Kent. So I love our work on that advisory board because they value our input, and it's important. They need it. That's the same with the Neptune study. It's a study, and it's another study that is involving glomerular diseases, and that's what this is. So they're also listening to us. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to 95 doctors, researchers, and scientists, and just to share my story, to show them pictures, to show them the pictures of those pills, to say, look, this is what it's like, and we deserve better. And that goes into CureGN. It's the same thing. My daughter is in that study. She's in the Columbia. It's a national study, but she does it out of Columbia. So she's actually in the CureGN study. I'm on the advisory board. So again, I get to have my voice heard. And with NephCure Kidney International, they are the only organization that does the research and funding and help for people with FSGS, nephrotic syndrome, with glomerular diseases. So to me, it was very important to work with that organization. I work with people like Kelly Helm. She's incredible source of information. And I just felt so strongly about working with NephCure because I know they're out there pushing for funding, for research, and to find a cure. And Live on New York, again, I just register people and educate and talk to people about the importance of being an organ donor, because there's over 100,000 people waiting for a kidney. So, I mean, how could you not?
Okay. Speaking about kidney solutions a little bit more, it's my understanding that Kidney Solutions helps people that are looking for a kidney transplant to find their match. And the particular emphasis there is on preemptive kidney transplant. Can you speak to that for a moment, please?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's one of the things what I wanted so badly to work with Kent. I believe in his vision wholeheartedly, 100%. Kent puts everything he has into Kidney Solutions. And just the meaning behind it is that preemptive dialysis. Dialysis is not a place for anybody. If we were in center, and just to talk about my experience with dialysis, my father was on dialysis. My niece, my sister's daughter, unfortunately passed away in end-stage kidney failure. She was 24. This is tough. When I hear the word dialysis, it strikes a nerve to me. And knowing that people like Kent with Kidney Solutions is out there trying to push for preemptive, meaning to not go on dialysis and get that transplant first, means everything to me. I sat there sitting next to my daughter when she was on dialysis, where the alarms are going off because her blood pressure is so high, or when you're coming off the machine, whether she was gonna pass out, or driving home, we had to pull over 3-4 times because she was throwing up. Dialysis is difficult. And the one thing about dialysis as a pediatric patient, which really was hard for me, is that they didn't want me to even be in the same room. They wanted me to go out of the hall, out into the hallway, wait for her to come off, to put her onto the catheter. They had to hook the machine onto her catheter. They didn't want anybody around there. And I said to them, I go, I'm not leaving my daughter. Are you kidding me? I'm staying right here. And she, you're going to do it. And they were like, no, nobody can be here. And I was like, well, I am going to be here. Yeah, I'm not leaving. I remember calling my husband. I go, I might get arrested today. I said, because they're trying to get me to leave, and I'm not leaving. It's my daughter. It's my child. So they think I'm gonna walk out of the room. They're smoking crack or something. I'm not leaving. So that means so dialysis really struck. And it was funny because I walked around the room. There was 35 chairs, 37 chairs, and I was very particular because she was a child. You had people in there, that I felt so bad, but it was not a place. I didn't want her to see that. I didn't want her to see where you're looking around and people were, I hate to say, on their deathbed. They looked rough. And that's, I wanted her head to be in a different space. So to be out of dialysis, to avoid that, would be everything to me. That's why I want to work so hard with Kidney Solutions to avoid dialysis. Let's get them, right to transplant and avoid that.
Excellent. I mentioned in the introduction that yourself, your daughter's kidney donor, Lisa, and your daughter had all won awards. Can you talk to us about the awarding a little bit?
Oh, that was fun. It was a couple of weeks ago. We were actually nominated to be the recipients of an award from the Fairy Godmother Foundation of New York. It's just a foundation. They do a lot of they do a phenomenal job giving small little gifts to children in need. Like they provided a laptop for a child. They provided some furniture for someone. Just some small little wishes for some people. It's a wonderful foundation, but they wanted to give us an award. My daughter got one for like a hero award, and that was just for her strength and how she battles her kidney disease. And actually for my husband and I, for the work that I do with the kidney donations and me being a donor. And they also gave Lisa Calla and Guy Calla an award. So we were part of this beautiful gala. It was nice. It was nice to be recognized. I mean, I don't do any of this for pats on the back, but that was really special. I appreciate that.
Okay, we're in the home stretch, Shannon. Is there anything that you would like to mention that we haven't discussed tonight before we conclude our discussion?
Sure. Well, as a result of putting our story out on Facebook, one of my husband's high school baseball teams, ironically baseball, everything happens on the baseball field, right? Jim, because baseball. So
My
everything
son
happens
works
on
for
the
the
baseball
Reds.
field. Yeah, I got it. So well, his high school buddy, Steve Wilson, read the story and he had been thinking about it. And in turn, I guess that story just sealed the deal. And he went and he donated to a stranger last February. And another one, I'm not going to mention his name, but another not a high school, a local kid that he grew up with in his neighborhood called him. He was so inspired by our story and the pictures that we posted on Facebook. He said that was my motivation, and he's doing it as well. He should be cleared next month in January. So I'm like, hey, it's a win-win. You have two people just because we put that story out there that we know of that actually, are donating, giving the gift of life. And just to conclude, I have a shirt on here and it says nephrotic syndrome comes with a manual, or it doesn't come with a manual, it comes with a mother that never gives up. A saying that I always, this is a great shirt for me because I have a saying, and we say it often in our household, is well, I will always give everything but up. So I use that saying a lot. Always give everything but up. Just don't give up. And I'm never going to give up because we need to find a cure. We deserve to find a cure. And we are. I really have faith in these people. I have to, because we will never give up.
Well, I guess I understated your story, Shannon. I said 4 transplants, and we're actually talking about 6 transplants
that we know of.
That we know of in this case. So I want to thank you for coming on and taking time to tell your story and tell us about Kidney Solutions tonight and what you're up to. And I wish you and your daughter and your entire family a great holiday season.
I appreciate you, Jim, giving me this platform, and to the everybody who's listening out there. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. It means a lot.
All right. Thank you so much, Shannon. Now, your Uncle Jim is going to give you the next broadcast we're supposed to have is, like New Year's Eve. And so your Uncle Jim's going to give you the night off. I imagine everybody's going to be happy about that. But just so you know about some of the things that are coming up, as you know, we had Austin Lee on last week. He was pretty thrilled with the broadcast. He wants to bring his mom on and talk to us about why she made the decisions that she made. So that will be an interesting discussion. Dr. Sejal Patel is transplanted and doing better. We should have her on very, very soon. I spoke with another doctor this week about genetic testing. He wants to come on and talk to us, so that's going to be scheduled. Our original scheduled guest tonight was Brianna. Brianna lost her father, who was her inspiration for the work she does with kidney disease and kidney diseased patients. As you know, she helps people through their employer to find their way through the trail of kidney disease. And so we were going to talk about how that works. Brianna will be back with us pretty soon. So take New Year's Eve off and watch this space. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.